regular session of Findlay City Council. We will start tonight's meeting with the roll call.
Mr. Bowman, Mr. Greeno,
Here.
Mr. Hellman, Mr. Niemeyer,
Here.
Mr. Palmer,
Here.
Mr. Russell,
Here.
Mr. Slough,
Here.
Ms. Warnicki,
Here.
Mr. Weisner,
Here.
and Mr. Wobser.
Present.
Understand that Mr. Hellman and Mr. Baumann both contacted me, letting me know that they would not be in attendance tonight. Mr. Russell.
Move to excuse.
Second, Mr. Palmer. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor excusing Mr. Hellman and Mr. Baumann, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. They are excused. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I will entertain a motion to accept the previous hearing and minutes of the previous. Mr. Slough.
I would move to approve the minutes of the last regular session of council.
Second, Mr. Niemeyer. Any discussion? I'd like to thank Mr. Wobser to running the last meeting. You did a good job. Whether we'll let you do it again, we'll see. All those in favor of acceptance of the previous city council meeting minutes, say aye. Any opposed, nay. They are accepted. We have no add-ons to this evening's agenda. We have no proclamations. We have no recognitions or retirement resolutions. We do have one petition.
An alley vacation request for Cypress Avenue from the Women's Resource Center. They're requesting a vacation of the first north-south alley, Cypress Avenue, east of Main Street from Laquinio Street to the north dead end.
Questions or comments? This will be referred to the City Planning Commission and the Planning and Zoning Committee. We do have one oral communication. Tom Ross, he'd like to speak on real estate issues, including the DDE. He'll have to explain what that is. So, Mr. Ross, oh, there you are. Yep, come on up. Make sure the microphone's turned on. You have 4 minutes, and there's a little button right there. Yep.
Oh, it's red. Okay. Does that do it? Okay. Can I go? Oh, okay. I wasn't sure how this worked. Good evening, everyone. My name's Tom Ross, and I'm a landlord and a licensed realtor here in Findlay. I'm here tonight as president and on behalf of the Findlay Area Rental Association, better known as FAIR, or commonly known. We're an association of approximately 80 landlords in Findlay and in Greater Hancock County, representing approximately $100 million in real estate value. Our members are upset and incensed and have asked me to speak tonight in outright refute of the recent housing study by DeSalvo Development Group, DDA, is what that is, currently being promoted by Mayor Murren and the HRPC. FAIR members are gravely concerned with the accuracy, the content, and the recommendations of the report. Our members specifically request that this housing study not be used for any policy decisions or considered as a baseline for any city or county planning or legislative discussions. Why? Because the report is flawed and it's based on inaccurate and misrepresented data. The study is based on flawed census data, which has estimated our population growth of 3% for Greater Hancock County. Pretty much everybody knows that the real census data shows 0% growth for the countywide, and we actually lost citizens in Findlay City proper. Now, FAIR does appreciate being recognized as a key stakeholder in the original housing study and to being used as a source of data. However, our data is misrepresented throughout the report. Solid data and real-time numbers were either ignored or misrepresented to fit what we believe is a narrative per the conclusions of the document. Perfect example, the report indicates or shows 52% of 3-bedroom rentals in Hancock County priced at or below $750. This isn't even close. Real data we provided is 3-bedroom homes priced at $1,300 to $1,500 in our community, which actually is still 10 to 15% below market rate statewide. There are countless other examples in the document. Unfortunately, we only get 4 minutes here, but the misrepresentation of the data shows really a disrespect for the FAIR organization and a document that really in our opinion, immorally and illegally misrepresents what our organization provided in good faith. It's obvious the document is not a legitimate study, in our opinion, at all, but based on a political agenda document intended to provide a false narrative to drive some undesirable policy changes. The study focused solely on the end user and for price points without considering the fixed cost supplier. That's us. This unbalanced and flawed approach completely ignores the market knowledge of the service providers themselves. Clearly, the survey was used to obtain a one-sided and prescribed answer. One of the study recommendations that really upsets us is that potential tenants should have all previous evictions and or criminal history expunged from the viewable data by landlords running a background check. Seriously? Folks, that dog won't hunt. I'm sorry. My organization and I find it personally offensive and question the legality of such behaviors. Encouraging our judges to hide prior evictions and criminal behaviors and creating lists that specifically force property owners to go against their own personal best interests as advocated throughout the document is criminal. And honestly, the fair organization isn't going to tolerate that. Document calls for 192 additional affordable units be constructed along with 56 market rate units. The census data alone contradicts the conclusion for this need and completely, not to mention the remaining inaccuracies throughout the document. The numbers just don't add up, folks, I'm sorry to say. Ladies and gentlemen, you cannot, in good conscience, use this flawed and inaccurate document for any policy decisions. I believe our community deserves better in real-time data. I will say this, please be advised and be warned that if you continue to move forward using the document, our organization will be forced to take action to protect our business interests. It's in our best interest. That's all. Respectfully submitted, Thomas Ross, President, Findlay Area Rental Association, February 1st, 2022.
Any
Under
questions?
4 minutes, right?
Yep, you're on
Good.
3 minutes, 42 seconds.
Right on, not
Good for you.
bad. Not
Any
bad.
questions for Mr. Ross? Mr. Wobser?
Tom, how many people did you say your association represents?
We have 80, oh, sorry. We have 80 landlords. Where are
80.
you at? Oh, there you are.
80.
You guys moved everything around on me, man.
Sorry
I'm
about that.
confused. We have 80 landlords in our association. Some are larger groups and some are individual landlords.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
When
Mr.
was that
Weiser?
survey from the Hancock Regional Planning Commission completed?
A little over a year ago. Year and a half, actually.
Okay. When did the issues first arise?
Well, when we found out or got to read the report finally, HRPC provided us with a copy of the report. Actually, Matt Cordonier came into our Findlay Area Apartment Association meeting and spoke to us about it. And quite frankly, didn't dispute any of these findings we have during his discussion.
Any other, no other questions? Or Brad, do you still have another one? Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Ross.
Thank you. Can I submit that copy?
Yep, you sure may.
I do have
Okay, we have no other,
copies for them if they'd like it. Should I give them to you?
yeah, I'll make sure. I'll
Thanks, Tom.
put it- Okay, thank you, Mr. Ross. We have no written communications this evening. Reports of municipal officers and departments.
Summary financial reports for December 31st, 2021.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed.
Letter from Service Safety Director Martin regarding Fire Department pumper truck number 2101400.
Questions or comments? Letter to be filed.
Treasurer's reconciliation report for December 31st, 2021.
Questions or comments?
Denise, can you move your microphone a little closer? You're kind of quiet.
Oh.
I'm sorry, report to be filed.
Letter from City Engineer Kalb regarding ODOT fiscal year 22 resurfacing PID 108772, project number 328-11800.
Questions or comments? Mr. Russell.
Just to confirm, Jeremy, that's Bright Road, correct?
Yep, this is second phase Bright Road, so this will be from Tiffin Avenue to Fostoria Avenue.
Any other questions or comments? Letter to be filed.
Letter from Fire Chief Eberly regarding update to City of Findlay Codified Ordinance Part 15 Fire Prevention Code.
Questions or comments? Letter to be filed. Committee reports.
Strategic Planning Committee agenda and meeting minutes from January 18th, 2022.
Mr. Wobser.
Make a motion to approve the committee report.
Second, Mr. Greeno. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the committee report say aye. Any opposed, nay. Committee report is adopted. Legislation, we have no resolutions. Ordinances.
Third reading for ordinance 2022-003, an ordinance appropriating funds and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Slough.
I would move for adoption of ordinance 2022-003.
Second, Mr. Greeno. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of ordinance 2022-003 say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer. Aye. Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki. Aye. Mr. Weisner.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
Second reading for ordinance 2022-5, an ordinance appropriating funds and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Russell.
Once again, when we have, or it's common for us to waive rules when, or suspend rules when we are receiving grant money. This is simply moving it from one fund to another so that we can start using it as the Hancock Park District, in this case, wishes it to be used. Therefore, I make a motion that we suspend council statutory rules and give 22-005 its third reading.
Second, Mr. Palmer. All those in favor of suspension of the rules say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Niemeyer. Aye. Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki. Aye. Mr. Weisner.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
And Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
The rules of council have been suspended, and the clerk will give the ordinance its third reading.
Ordinance 2022-005.
Mr. Wobser.
Make a motion to approve.
Second, Mr. Palmer. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the ordinance say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki. Aye. Mr. Weisner.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer.
The ordinance is adopted.
Second reading for ordinance 2022-006, an ordinance amending Chapter 1100 et sec of the codified ordinances of the City of Findlay, Ohio, known as the zoning code, by rezoning the following described property, referred to as South Main Street, parcel number 620010222082, rezone, which previously was zoned C2 General Commercial, to M2 Multifamily High Density. Second reading for ordinance 2022-007, an ordinance vacating a certain portion of a certain road right-of-way, hereinafter referred to as the Findlay Commerce Park 4th Edition Heartland Court right-of-way vacation in the City of Findlay, Ohio. First reading for ordinance 2022-008, an ordinance appropriating funds and transferring funds and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Greeno.
Yeah, I move that we do, the statutory rules of council be suspended and we give this ordinance its second and third reading, since I believe this fire truck is pretty much on its way and we need to get it paid for.
Second, Mr. Slough. All those in favor of suspending the rules say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki. Aye. Mr. Weisner.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer. And Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
The rules have been suspended, and the clerk will give this ordinance its second and third reading.
Ordinance 2022-008. Ordinance 2022-008.
Mr. Wobser.
I make a motion to approve.
Second, Mr. Palmer. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the ordinance say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki. Aye. Mr. Weisner.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer. Aye. Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
First reading for ordinance 2022-009, an ordinance appropriating funds and transferring funds and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Russell.
This is for the resurfacing of Bright Road. It's part of our capital plans. We've discussed this for a while, and the money is needs to be we need to accept the money in this month, and Jeremy has asked that we suspend rules, and therefore I would move that council statutory rules be suspended and ordinance 2022-009 be given its second and third reading.
Second, Mr. Greeno. All those in favor of suspending the rules, say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Weisner?
Aye.
Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer? Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
And Mr. Slough?
Aye.
The rules of council have been suspended, and the clerk will give the ordinance its second and third reading.
Ordinance 2022-009, ordinance 2022-009.
Mr. Greeno.
Move for adoption of ordinance number 2022-009.
Second, Mr. Palmer. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the ordinance, say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Weisner?
Aye.
Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer? Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Wobser? We've already, see.
Nope. The ordinance is adopted.
First reading for ordinance 2022-10, and ordinance amending Part 15 of the Fire Prevention Code, repealing ordinance number 2011 of the codified ordinances of the City of Findlay, Ohio. That's all I got.
Old business. New business. Mr. Russell.
Calling a planning and zoning committee meeting for February 10th at noon in the council offices. P&Z, February 10th at noon.
Mr. Wobser.
We had a strategic planning committee meeting just prior to this meeting, and we discussed the our first community outreach meeting that went very well with the 40 participants, most of which were there. So that's moving along very nicely. We'll need to have a strategic planning committee between now and the next couple of weeks. I'll get some dates out via email to the group, and we'll decide on a date for that. Since the time prior to the next city council meeting is filled with some other topics. So, but everything continues to move forward nicely, and very pleased with our progress so far.
Other new business. Ms. Mayor.
Good evening. Just a couple of quick items. I'll start with the fire prevention code. I just wanted to mention that is part of a number of items that we're going to be addressing over the next year, probably couple years, related to our ISO rating, but we are actually going to be having a visit for our ISO evaluation here in the next couple of months. So that's one of those items that will be very helpful for us to be able to show that we are addressing and are current to the state fire code. The other item, I just want to remind folks, in case you didn't see it, Jeremy tries to send out an email Mondays or Tuesdays prior to a city council meeting, giving any comments or feedback on legislation that he thinks is beneficial that's not already included. One of the items that you addressed tonight regarding Bright Road, I saw a couple of faces going, why are we passing this quickly? Please try to look at your emails ahead of time so we can kind of give you the most up-to-date information we have. That's one of those items that, because it's part of our kind of resurfacing plan that we've had a couple of years in advance, the state is wanting us to address it within 30 days so we can get documents approved and get the money from the state. So always appreciate your attention to those items. Fire truck is a similar one, was addressed. That's an item that we had previously had it appropriated last year. You all agreed to it, but the PO didn't get made, the money didn't get transferred, so we needed to do that this year. And then finally, there's going to be a snowstorm, but our teams are ready to go. Hopefully, God willing, it does not look like we're going to have rain and ice. Our biggest concern that we're watching for is ice and power outages. We can handle snow. We remind folks to be off the roads. We are going to be doing our best. If we get over 8 inches of snow, especially in the downtown area, they will move snow into the parking lanes, and then we'll have to come back when we have the staff to be able to get it in the bucket trucks and move it out of the area. So the biggest thing is, if you can move your cars off of roads, please do so. Be patient. We will clear the main arteries first. Then we will do initial passes on all of the side roads, and then we will come back and clear curb to curb. So if somebody gets a complaint that we didn't clear a road but we came down it, that's on purpose. We're trying to get it so you can at least pass through the road, even if it's driving down the middle of it, especially on your residential roads. and then we will come back as it permits to clear it. We're watching the weather closely. I think pretty much our time has been consumed with preparing, but we are in good shape and we'll do our best, and we appreciate everybody's patience and wisdom as we all get through the storm together. I did put out a video on social media today that if you are active on social media, please share that. It's a couple of reminders related to staying safe in storm events, clearing fire hydrants, not using space heaters, close to blankets, all those little items that keep folks safe, which is our main priority.
What
Yes.
are they calling for?
So let's see, this afternoon at 1 p.m. when we had it, they said there's a 90% chance that we will have at least 8 inches, but they're saying most likely 10 to 16. We have another briefing at 1 tomorrow. It got pushed a little bit back. You know, initially we were thinking it was going to start raining today, snowing tonight. Luckily, it looks like rain all day tomorrow, maybe starting to transition a bit in the afternoon. The majority of the snow coming down heavy on Thursday into Friday morning.
So just for a little bit of history, last year's primary snow event last year was 13 inches.
Yep.
And that shut us down pretty good, but did an excellent job clearing the roads. Everybody was dug out within probably 10 hours, let alone 24 hours.
You know, I would just say one of the things, again, you know, all those behind the scene things that our team is preparing. We have cots for some of our team members to stay, to come in and shifts and take breaks as needed. We have food ready so that people can eat when they're, you know, on site. We have fuel backup plans if we do lose power, staged locations throughout town. We have staggered shifts prepared. So our teams are really ready because you have to remember we are a service organization. The majority of our employees have to show up regardless of what's going on. They have to make sure the water treatment plant is operating. They have to make sure the water pollution control plant is operating. Police and fire have to be ready to respond at all times. And if they have to be hunkered down for 48 hours, they need to be able to give each other breaks. Obviously, our public works team is ready to clear the words and stagger shifts. And then all of our other team members are kind of, if they have the credentials and ability to support those other staff members, they're prepared to do so. You know, keeping the airport safe and clear. So all of those things that our team has been working and talking about as soon as we got word of this potential storm event, and then over the last couple of days talking, how do we support each other? What's worst case scenario? Talking to the county, talking to EMA, talking to surrounding areas. So we have great plans. We're prepared, and hopefully it'll all play out smoothly. Any other questions or comments for me?
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Any other new business? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Weisner, second. Mr. Niemeyer, all those in favor of adjournment, say aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.